I'd like to welcome my guest to the program out of Paris, Gerard Coleman, journalist and political analyst, and out of the UK, Shabir Hassan Ali, activist and Islamic scholar. Thank you both for being with us. Let's start this off in Paris with Gerard. Do you think what is happening to the Rohingyas is ethnic cleansing in Myanmar?
No. We're not talking about a state-sponsored genocide against an ethnic group here. We need to be very clear about that. On the 25th of August, 30 police stations were attacked by militants, by terrorists, Islamist terrorists, who have links to terrorist groups outside the country and organizations in Saudi Arabia, and have links also with the deep state in Pakistan, Inter-Services Intelligence, and the deep state in Bangladesh, the Directorate General of Forces Intelligence. This is part of an Islamist insurgency against the central government of the Union of Myanmar. And the human rights groups are at the forefront of the media disinformation war against the authorities of that country. This is essentially a war of globalization against the nation state. It is a repetition of what we've seen in Syria, and many of the people who are creating this narrative of a genocide by the Burmese authorities against the Rohingya are the same people who support terrorist groups in Syria and have been creating false flag terror attacks against the Syrian government in order to frame them for crimes they themselves have committed.
Okay.
Crimes, terrible crimes, such as torturing children. I have seen videos of babies being tortured, and they are blaming this on the Burmese authorities. There is no evidence whatsoever to support those claims.
All right, stay with me, Gerard, please. Stay with me. Stay with me. Let me get Shabir in on this discussion. Shabir, your perspective on what Gerard's comment.
I have to say that I really don't know what planet the other guest is living on, because clearly it's not this one. Yes, okay, maybe there was something that happened in August, just recently, where some Rohingya people got angry and they decided to take some action. I don't know if that's true or not, but let's assume it is. The plight of the Rohingyas didn't start yesterday. Their plight, the recent genocide against them, has started since 2013. 2013, you've had people being kicked out, being killed, and also, let's not forget one thing. The Rohingya have no rights in Burma or Myanmar. And Myanmar is, you know, they're not even part of the so-called 130 ethnic minorities that exist within Myanmar. They're not allowed to be. So let's assume that there are people within the Rohingya who are allied to Saudi Arabia or are funded by Saudi Arabia. And let's assume that there are a handful of people or a percentage that are a problem. That doesn't justify genocide, killing of people, raping of people. I mean, I'm sorry, but the other guest says that there's no evidence. There's plenty of evidence. I mean, anyone who watches Press TV or other channels even knows that this has been a situation that has been covered by the alternative media for a very long time. And then the guest says something even more bizarre. He says those people who are talking about the genocide of the Rohingyas are, you know, the same people who were talking about, you know, in support of Daesh and people in Syria. This is ludicrous. Imam Khamenei, the leader of Iran, of the Islamic Revolution, has spoken against the genocide of the Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar by the Myanmar government and this Nobel Peace Laureate. Was he also involved in Daesh? Is he a member of Daesh now, according to the other guest? Because if he is, then really this other guest is in need of some serious...
Okay, stay with me, Shabir. Let me get Gerard back in on this. Gerard, what about that? I mean, we even, Press TV, we have a correspondent right now on the ground, actually, in Myanmar, and Johnny Miller, has been talking to people, engaging the whole situation, and says that basically there is this atmosphere of absolute hate for the Rohingyas, and a lot of the people actually support what they also believe is happening. We may call it genocide, ethnic cleansing, perhaps just murder, they feel that it is justified, and he's on the ground there. So your take on that?
Well, first of all, I'd like to address your guest's comments about the Iranian leadership. I have been critical of Iran's policy on this issue, and I've written about that. I've explained it to officials in the Iranian government in my last visit to Tehran, the head of the military, the head of the
but are they supporting
people
Daesh?
high up in Iranian intelligence. I did not accuse them of supporting Daesh, but I did explain what I consider to be. Let me finish. Please let me finish. Please let me finish. I let you finish. I explained to them my concerns with some aspects of their policies, particularly in Libya in 2011 when they supported the NATO terrorists there, and here in Myanmar. So I've been very clear in terms of my criticisms of Iranian foreign policy. The very people who are committing the crimes today in Myanmar are the people who are committing crimes in Syria against Iranian forces there. And it is surprising to see the Iranian leadership take this position.
Sorry to jump in here. Tell me your proof of what you're saying. You're saying it's the same forces that are actually basically the ones who are dealing with Daesh or are fighting against the resistance. These are the same forces that are doing the situation inside of Myanmar. Tell us your proof. Based on what are you saying this?
Take, for example, Professor Penny Green of Queen Mary University in London. She's a major academic behind the sort of framing of this genocide narrative. She works with a journalist called Hania Mortada, and he just published an article recently where he had a big picture of the white helmets in Syria. And he basically publishes anti-Assad propaganda, and he works closely with Penny Green. So that's just one example, but there are many others. The modus operandi of the terrorists in Rohingya is to basically use photoshopping. So they use a lot of fake images. For example, earthquakes in other countries are presented as genocide. I saw one picture posted where it was a family in Cambodia who lost their child. Their child had been beheaded in a car accident. They posted that online and said it was the government as well.
What about the journalists that, Gerard, what about the journalists, independent journalists that are on the ground right now in Bangladesh? Independent journalists that are on the ground in Bangladesh and Myanmar that are covering this. What about that? We're not talking about just mainstream media because, of course, we were all involved and understand the creation of fake news. So we all understand that. But we're also talking about independent journalists, independent media. And I must say even Press TV that is not taking a line because of the Iranian government, but because that we have journalists on the ground and trying to seek the truth and have actually interviewed Muslims coming out of Myanmar and what they're saying. Let me get Shabir back in on this. Shabir, stay with me, Gerard. Stay with me, Gerard. Shabir, when we look at this situation, what is the root cause, do you think, as far as this deterioration of the situation in Myanmar?
Well, first of all, you have to look. The area where the Rakhine state is, it's somewhat coastal. It's got a large amount of natural resources around it. It's also well known that Israel has a very close connection with the government in Myanmar that is run by this Nobel Peace Laureate. Which, to be on the subject of the Nobel Peace Prize, I mean, this has become a farce. Anyone who has half a brain knows that the Nobel Peace Prize means nothing. It's actually a Nobel War Prize because Obama won it. And this Aung San Suu Kyi, she's just a warmonger. She's a terrorist herself. She has no legitimacy in having a peace prize because she is complicit in the murder of the people of Rakhine province, Rakhine state. And I mean, with respect to the other guests, yes, okay, let's say there's some evidence that there are some people who are, like I said, there are some people who are unscrupulous. There are some people who are funded by Saudi or someone, right? Does that justify
They're called terrorists.
Massacre?
They're called terrorists. That's called terrorism. It's called terrorism. That's the word.
So you have a handful of people who are terrorists. So your logic, based on your logic, this is the logic of the Israelis. The Israelis have a handful of people who they call a terrorist.
Okay, let's
and so
talk
they
about
massacre
Israel.
and flatten Gaza.
I'd like to say something about
This
Israel.
is your logic. This is broken logic.
I'd like to say something about Israel here. Let me say something about Israel. The leader of the opposition party in Bangladesh, Assam Chowdhury, was arrested by the Bangladeshi police this year for what they described as a Mossad Israeli plot to effect regime change in Bangladesh. The opposition party in Bangladesh are fervent and vociferous supporters of the Rohingya genocide claims, and the United States wants to use them to oust the Awami League government there next year. They tried to get them in before. They have very close links to Israel. In fact, that has actually been proven. So,
so let me
trying
say
to say that just
okay, Gerard, let Shabir answer what you just pointed to. Go ahead, Shabir.
Doesn't really make much sense.
Based on your logic, sir, you would say that because this particular group is allegedly a fan of Israel, that they are involved with Mossad or something, it's fine. You can massacre hundreds of thousands of Rohingya Muslims just because this Bangladeshi fellow...
What about the Buddhists? Do you not care for Buddhists? Buddhists don't matter for you?
I
You're
care
not
about
interested
all
in any of the
people who are being
claims?
massacred. Who's being massacred in the Buddhists?
Okay,
What about
stay with
Hindus?
me.
You care
Stay
about
with
them?
me, both of you, Gerard, Shabir. Stay with me. I want to cross over and look at our Facebook page and see what our viewers have said about this subject, and we'll be right back.
Call all kinds of diplomatic and economic deal with brutal Myanmar immediately. I think it's time to see all peace-loving nations seriously come forward and discuss what actions they shall take against the barbaric government of Myanmar. There is no pressure at all. Myanmar is a free country and has all the rights to defend its territory. Arab nations should form up an army to protect Muslims in Myanmar. I disagree with those who say only Muslim countries should take action. I want to say all countries have a responsibility.
Well, Gerard, you've heard some of our comments by our viewers. One of the comments, all countries must get involved and take action. Your perspective on that?
Well, many countries are involved. The United States is involved. One of the chief propagandists of the Rohingya cause is a man called Wakar Uddin, and he addressed the US Congress in 2013, where he described the United States as the leader of the world, and he said that the United States needed to intervene. Well, the US did intervene. They passed a resolution the following year calling for an end to the so-called genocide. The Rohingyaist propagandists then went to the Lowenstein International Rights Center in Yale University, and they got them to write up a document saying that there was some legal basis for intervention, that it was an actual genocide. Allard K. Lowenstein, of course, was the famous US representative of human rights in Geneva under the Carter administration, and he was described by the New York Times at the time as the greatest friend of Israel because he used the anti-racism card in Africa to try to persuade African governments to stop calling Israel racist. And Lowenstein, the Lowenstein Center in Yale has played a major role in framing this genocide narrative. And of course, Lowenstein was also the Human Rights Commissioner to the United Nations during the Carter administration when Rohingya terrorists were being sent to Afghanistan to join the Mujahideen.
Gerard, if according to you, what you're saying, the narrative is true, why wouldn't we see more aggressive acts by the UN if, according to you, it's a similar scenario like Syria or like Libya? Then why wouldn't we see them immediately trying to inflict sanctions against Myanmar, no-fly zones? Why wouldn't we see more pressure than coming from that so-called international community? Because we definitely saw it in Syria. We definitely saw it in other places. So why not here if your narrative is correct?
Well, it has. There are differences. I mean, this is Asia. This is the pivot to Asia. So we're seeing the build-up here of Islamist insurgencies all over Asia. We're seeing them in Thailand, in Philippines, and other countries. So this is really the start of something big. It will take a while to build up the R2P narrative, the responsibility to protect. Right now, Muslim countries are doing that, and they're talking about, you know, the media not paying attention. The media. I just watched CNN. They're all over this. They're pushing this whole Rohingya narrative all the time. And so they're basically trying to familiarize people with the terms. Nobody had ever heard of Rohingya before, because there is no such thing as Rohingya. They're essentially ethnic Bengalis. Most of them speak Chittagonian. In fact, Mohammed Yunus in Bangladesh admitted that recently. Please don't interrupt me. Please don't interrupt me. Mohammed Yunus from Bangladesh, famous economist, admitted himself recently in an interview that they speak Chittagonian, and that's how he's so close to them, because he's able to understand everything they say, because they speak the same dialect of Bengali.
All right, Shabir, your take on what our guest in Paris has just said.
I'm really, it's not very often I say I'm lost for words, but really I am. It's like saying that these people, the claims of the Myanmar government, where you have a people that have lived for generations and generations in a state of a country, have their rights, have their identity stolen from them, and you have people who profess to be pioneers of human rights and speakers for human justice and all this sort of stuff, saying, actually, no, there's a problem over here. This is like, these people are all terrorists. Like I've said, there will be some insurgency within the Rohingyas. This is normal. It's like everywhere. Within France, you have insurgents. Within Britain, you have insurgents. Within everywhere, you have people who, you know, don't like what's going on and they want to take action. But what I've been saying, and what no one has been listening to...
And you justify that.
No,
you justify those actions, don't you?
Don't interrupt me now. Let me just finish
what I'm saying. Well, you interrupted me. You keep interrupting me.
So go ahead, Shabir. Go ahead, Shabir.
This is how intelligent you are, yeah? This is how clever we are. We are well done, right? The bottom line is that this massacre of Rohingya Muslims is not something that, okay, fine, now CNN and other people have picked it up. This has been happening, I remember it, since 2013. I remember speaking about it and writing about it
10 seconds,
since
Shabir.
2013. Sorry?
10 seconds.
This is a
Where's your evidence for this genocide? Where is your evidence?
People are being killed. Okay,
Human Rights Watch?
What
Human Rights Watch? Amnesty International, is that your evidence?
People are being ethnically...
Okay, unfortunately, Gerard and Shabir, I wish we could continue this, because obviously we needed to talk a little bit more, but unfortunately we're out of time. Thank you both for being with us, Gerard Coleman and Shabir Hassan Ali. And as always, viewers, we appreciate you being with us on another debate. I'm Marzia Hashmi signing off for myself and all the crew right here in Tehran. See you next time.